Yeah, I can see why you would think it's pretty important.
Yeah, these articles for today especially showcase, you know, that this is probably one of the most hot button issues within the subject of grammar studies right now. Like, how do you teach the standard English without marginalizing certain minority
Right.
groups?
Or sounding offensive, but I think it's, they bring up a lot of really good things. There's one part that I did start in this article, the one with Wheeler. I did the Wheeler one,
Mm-hmm.
Wheeler and Thomas. And it mentions that, somebody in particular thought that people doing, oh gosh, what is it called? Um,
Code
we did a
switching.
paper on it. Yes, thank you. That's what it is. I'm looking for it in my, like, what I've written so far, code switching and code meshing. Okay, and the person thought that it was a racist thing, and of course they disagreed. They feel like it's very important and relevant to teach standard English by using those aspects, because they're trying to still include that culture, and show respect and have all that. They're not trying to, like you said, marginalize them. They're just trying to ensure that they feel like they're seen and heard, and they're not telling them they're not speaking incorrectly. This is just how you have to do it, in school, more or less. This is, it's not that it's right or wrong, or what you're saying is right or wrong. It's just,
Right.
this is the way we do it traditionally, and I want you to know how to do it. Right. So that was kind of my argument with it too. Like, yeah, I agree with them. They have to teach them standard English. It's not, and let them know that, how they speak in their community is fine. It's just, and it's not wrong. It's just, you have to know standard English. So,
Yeah, the Wheeler and Thomas article felt a little moody almost, right?
mm-hmm. You
Like,
know what? I actually did not like the wording at all. Like, they were like, I had to look some of it up. Like, and then I'm like, oh, that's, what that is. I realized, the shortened version, it's words that don't even exist. They made words up, you know.
right?
So I'm like, that they kind of like were snooty in a way. Like,
Yeah.
we're superior, and, we're smart, and like, we're going to write it like this. But it's hard to understand. So, but that's the one I did.
Give me just a second. I want to see if I can pull something up.
Sure. The bi-dialectalists. I'm like, what in the world? And then I was like, oh, it means you have two different dialects. I see now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually spelled misassess. Like, they used misassess a lot and misassessment. They spelled it incorrectly. I'm like, that's a little funny considering. What's another one they used that was insane? There's a lot of words in there that are kind of, what were they thinking, kind of thing. But truly.
My bus.
Yeah, your bus just got here.
Why?
Yeah, before I'd only read a précis of that article. Today was the first time I've read that one myself.
It's really long, and yeah. I'd say most people probably didn't pick that one because,
I'd say not. No.
yeah. Like, well, I've had to look up so many words in it, and I'm like, oh, like, it is what I thought it was. It's just they made up a new word, Literally, that's what it's kind of like. Yeah, it's insane. It's not really that fun, so. But I'm almost done with it. I just haven't really put my opinion paragraph.
I'm pulling up now. One of my students, one of the things you guys will be doing at the end of the semester is giving a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And pulling up one of my students' presentations from the end of my class last year because he did a really good job
So it was on this topic in particular?
Yeah, of
Gotcha.
AAVE.
The African American vernacular.
Yep.
Gotcha. English. Hey, I know what that means. Thanks to you.
If it'll let me download my comments, what's going on here?
I think I picked this article just based off of the title, but like I said, I almost switched it, but yeah, it's not. Joe, now have you picked one yet? Don't pick this. Don't pick the Wheeler one. You won't like it anyway. It's awful.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do the same one that you're doing.
No, don't do it. I'm telling you, it's bad.
Oh, that one?
The Wheeler. Yeah. Don't do Wheeler. It's bad, is what I'm saying.
I'm trying to get it pulled up right now. I just got in here.
It's really long, and they use a lot of huge words that they've made up, some of them. Like, you know, there is a word or whatever they added to it.
I'm doing the one by Turner.
Okay, good. Yeah, because this one's bad, the one that I did, and I wish I hadn't done it really, but it's done, so.
Yeah,
Also, second thing, sorry. I have study hall at 4:30 with my class, so I'll get off again and join back once I get downstairs and with study hall with my softball team.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you do. So I'm not just popping in and out and in and out.
Hey, you're here. That's what matters.
Yeah, so I'm having a hard time even pulling that up. I'll just explain.
Okay.
So when it comes to African American vernacular English, that video that I posted for everybody does a really good job of explaining the differences in grammar compared to the standard English. I would encourage everybody to give that a watch. I'm definitely not an expert on this topic, but what that video goes really in depth as far as the linguistic stuff goes. What we really need to know when it comes to teaching is how do you teach those students in a responsible way. So the issue back in the 90s, they came up with that word ebonics, and that's a compound word for ebony and phonics. Right, so you can kind of see how that word even is kind of racist. Not it kind of, it is to even say it.
Yeah, it is.
But they came up with this idea in the 90s that it was a big talking point right around 1998, 1999. And the reason why is the article we read for Tuesday explained, the Oakland County Board of Education tried to declare it a foreign language just so they could get more federal funding. But all four of the articles that we've read for this week, I'm going to try to treat this like a big discussion of all articles this week. But I have the sinus gook, sorry. But
yeah, you sounded rough. I almost asked if you were all right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'll probably need an antibiotic or something. But all four of the articles talk about like different struggles that a lot of black students have with learning the standard English because of all the different dialectical differences. And the worst thing that you can do in this case, and this is why that I spent a whole week on this in this class, is the worst thing you can do is marginalize the students further, right? Like the article from Wheeler and Thomas today talked about how this one kid was in first grade and was reading and was writing actually pretty well. She was writing like vivid imagery and stuff, but she was writing in AAVE, and the teacher just thought the kid was, incompetent, and gave the kid a coloring book, right? So, yeah, that's
So messed up.
that was messed up. Yeah, and so much depends on how we teach those students. And one of the things I liked about the articles for today is they're especially relevant to what you guys will be doing. A lot of the articles I've given you this semester, it's like college teaching theory and stuff. This is stuff that of course, you can apply it to K-12, but these articles are really directly about K-12. Like this is how you need to work with these students. And so one of the practices that is mentioned, and that is the article I gave you for Tuesday. It was called Becoming Adept at Code Switching. So code switching, and actually when this practice is done, it has statistically yielded a lot of fruit as far as standardized tests and stuff like that go. If you do code switching is a practice where you take the student's native dialect, maybe even like write a paragraph on the board, for instance, on what that student's in that student's dialect, and then maybe on the other side of the board, you would write that same paragraph in the standard English with correct grammar. And you would tell the students, hey, this is you, this is how you speak on the left side. On the right side, this is how you speak around certain other audiences. So this is how you write along certain other audiences. And if you can kind of do that sort of translation activity, that kind of helps the students' self-confidence in many ways. Because if you just go about it and say, hey, these students are wrong, you're wrong, this is not right, this is not correct, the way you speak isn't correct, you're going to lose that student as soon as you say that. But if you can kind of show them, hey, this is the way we speak in our local community, this is the way that the standard population with standard English speaks, you can say the same thing in just a little bit of a different way. That teaches those students the skill to be able to switch over to the standard English. And
you don't take any confidence away. So
right.
Yeah, that's the appropriate way to do that for sure.
And that, if especially you guys are going to go into the classroom, if you have a racially diverse classroom, this is about Black students, but we could talk about maybe you have a Hispanic population, right? Maybe you have even around here with Appalachian English presents the same sort of difficulty. Appalachian English is a dialect. If you work with certain marginalized peoples, you can kind of teach them correct literacy by doing this code switching technique, which I've introduced you guys to with that reading.
And you save yourself from being offensive and whatnot as well.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that they're being offensive, or they don't really know like what type of psychological damage they do to a child who grows up in that environment, and then you tell that child, hey, everything you do is wrong. That kind of leaves a mark on a child, and can be a domino effect for the whole rest of their education. You don't really know how much of an impact you have in the day-to-day operations. So the code switching is a technique that you can use to convey the literacy. Oftentimes, it has yielded a lot of good fruit as far as test scores and things like that go. And frankly, that's all schools care about, is how good can you get on a test.
Right. I was kind of sad that in that article, that someone thought that the code switching and code meshing was racist. I was like, no, it's not. Like, I guess, from my perspective, I know I'm not in a marginalized community myself, so I can only say what, I see and feel, but like, how else are you supposed to go about it?
I gave you that article on purpose because I wanted to give you the idea of code switching, but I also wanted to challenge the idea of code switching.
Right.
And that is the challenge that Wheeler and Thomas pose. Like, it's the same sort of like white supremacy type. They call it white supremacy type stuff, right? White culture is better than black culture. That's pretty much what you're saying.
White privilege. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you're saying. If you if you teach this skill of code switching, I don't know if I agree with that.
Right.
You're just teaching them two different communication contexts. Is all. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But it is worth getting that perspective just to show really you can't win.
Yeah.
You can't win as far as how you go about it.
Isn't that the truth?
One of the things that Wheeler and Thomas say close to the end is, if you have a linguistics class in college and you understand the differences in dialects and how dialects work, and that one dialect is no more superior than any other dialect, then that oftentimes breeds empathy for a teacher and their students. So the fact that we're even having this discussion right now about how do you teach this community, you're above most other education people, right? Because a lot of education majors don't really get this type of training that I'm giving you as far as how to think about teaching those other communities. You think this is the standard, everybody's got to meet the standard. If you don't have that linguistics knowledge that we're talking about right now, you won't know how to teach those students.
Yeah.
But the meshing is what Wheeler and Thomas talk about, and that's writing what they mean by that is that's writing assignments that kind of mishmash both. So the students can write in their own dialect and then switch to standard English and switch back. Like, you can kind of mishmash between the two.
Yeah. And without getting any credit taken off, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
That just gives the students practice, right? You expect the students to write in perfect English right off the get-go, and that's a way that they can kind of practice and get words on the page, get familiar with their ideas, and then just even the act of writing, right? So this is definitely a complicated issue, and as I said, our next unit next week will be on Appalachian English. It's the same type of thing here. A lot of people have dialectical patterns, and like we've talked about one in this class already, like I seen it instead of I saw it. How do you teach those students to avoid doing that without at the same time being condescending or making fun of them for it? let me show you guys. I think it's worth we spend some time on it. I'm going to show you guys this video. This will kind of educate you on the differences in AAVE with standard English. So let me show you. Very good video from this dude. Okay.
Welcome to the Lang Focus channel.
Can you hear it?
My name is
Could you hear it, Amelia?
Yes.
Paul.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about African American Vernacular English. African American Vernacular English, which you may also hear referred to as Ebonics, is a group of dialects of English that developed among African American communities in the United States. Because of the expressive and innovative nature of these dialects, they are very influential, and they are the source of many slang expressions and idioms that are used in general American English and even international English. Yet despite the fact that English speakers borrow their favorite pieces of AAVE, there's still the persistent belief that its speakers speak bad English or broken English, as though they're constantly making mistakes when they speak. But any linguist will tell you that's not how language works. AAVE is not broken standard English. It's simply not standard English. It's something else. Enslaved African people were first brought to what is now the United States in 1619, and over the next 2 centuries, hundreds of thousands more were brought over. Similar to the development of English-based Creole languages in the Caribbean, AAVE developed from contact between speakers of West African languages and their English-speaking slave masters, as well as indentured servants from Great Britain and Ireland. But while AAVE has some Creole-like features, it's much closer to Standard English than Caribbean Creoles are. One theory suggests that it arose as a result of the slaves learning the dialectal English spoken by the indentured servants, who were poor and oftentimes not proficient in Standard English. Another theory suggests that it developed as a Creole language, but then converged with Standard English through a process of decreolization. The more accepted theory is the first one, but there was probably also some Creole influence from the slaves brought to the US from the Caribbean. With Black Americans living as a largely separate community, first under slavery, then under segregation, it makes sense that they would develop their own enduring dialects, and it also makes sense that they would develop their own in-group expressions and idioms that were difficult for hostile outsiders to understand. The Great Northward Migration of the 20th century helped establish AAVE as an enduring dialect group throughout the country. They're also left out before the present progressive ing.
He don't know what he's talking about.
Note that is and are the only forms of to be that are dropped. First, is and are often left out.
She over there.
That's before a phrase showing location.
You a funny dude.
That's before a noun phrase.
They kinda crazy.
And here it's left out before an adjective. They're also left out before the present progressive ing.
He don't know what he's talking about.
Note that is and are the only forms of to be that are dropped. Am is not left out, and neither are the past tense forms was and were, more on those later, or be. Also, is and are can't be dropped at the end of a sentence.
I don't know what it is.
The basic rule is that they can only be dropped in AAVE in the same contexts in which they can become contractions in Standard English. Habitual be. There are contexts in which speakers of AAVE use be when is or are would be used in Standard English. For example,
We be working 24/7.
be has a special purpose when used like this. It indicates habitual action. This sentence is also possible,
We working.
but that just means working right now, rather than habitually working over an extended period of time. Another example.
He always be telling people what to do.
So you can see that the use of be is not a random choice or mistake. It's systematic and it's grammatically correct according to the rules of AAVE. There's also an intensive habitual marker. This is similar to habitual be, but is more emphatic.
He stay running late for work.
This means that it happens pretty much all the time. It's habitual. There's also an intensified continuous marker, steady. It shows that the action is in progress, but not necessarily habitual over a longer period of time.
You never listen. I've been told you to stop, but you steady playing.
For the word playin' here, I would probably say playing around or messing around. Lack of person-number agreement. Before we saw this sentence,
He don't know what he talking about.
this part, he don't, may have stood out to you as different. Verb conjugations are generally flattened so that they are the same regardless of person and number.
They was acting crazy.
They was rather than they were. In the present tense, this usually means that the third person singular form doesn't have an S.
Yeah, he work at the shop down the street.
He work rather than he works. That's the basic pattern most of the time. A common expression that seems to contradict this rule is gots to.
Okay, you tripping. I gots to go.
Notice the S on gots, even when it's not in the third person singular. Gots to seems to have developed as distinct from gotta, both being contractions of have got to. Gots to is more emphatic than gotta. Completive or perfective done. The word done is frequently used as an aspect marker showing that an action has been completed.
You know you done messed up, right?
This is often interpreted as referring to an action completed in the very recent past, but that's not necessarily the case. It could be further back in the past, but using done gives the feeling that the situation after the action is different than the situation before it.
He done woke up the whole neighborhood.
The word been is also used with verbs in two ways. One way is called unstressed been. It's used like have been or has been in standard English.
She been married for a long time.
There's also stressed been. When been, pronounced more like been, is stressed, it means that the action occurred a long time ago, or that the action or state has been continuing for a long time.
She been married.
This means that she's been married for a long time. The stress on been indicates that the marriage began in the remote past, so the phrase for a long time is unnecessary. In fact, when using stressed been, it's actually ungrammatical to include an adverbial phrase like that.
I been finished my homework, Ma.
There are a few special ways to express the future in AAVE. One way is using gon or gonna, which is a contraction of going to.
We gonna visit them soon.
Gonna is used in casual speech in a lot of varieties of English, so this is no big surprise. Another more distinctive future form is finna.
I'm finna go home.
This is a contraction of fixin' to, which is frequently heard in dialects of the southern US, like I'm fixin' to go home.
I'm finna hit the door in a second.
Hit the dough, or hit the door, meaning leave. There's also a special form used in the first person singular, I'ma.
I'ma wait right here while you get ready.
I'ma developed as a contraction of I'm gonna. It may be a contraction of I'm gonna, but it's now used slightly differently as a declaration of immediate action, whereas I'm gonna or I'm gon is a little further into the future. Negation.
How to get the most of Grammarly free.
It's Kayla on behalf of Grammarly to
The negative in AAVE is frequently expressed with ain't, though not in all contexts. With a verb in the simple present tense, don't is used rather than ain't. He doesn't live here anymore.
He don't live here no more.
In the present continuous, ain't is used.
Man, I ain't even trying to hear all that.
This is like saying, I have no interest in hearing what you're saying. Notice that ain't often blends in with the words around it. I ain't is more like I ain't. I ain't even is more like I ain't even.
Man, I ain't even trying to hear all that.
In the past tense it's used, I didn't say anything.
I ain't say nothing.
It's also used with the present perfect. I haven't said anything.
I ain't said nothing.
By the way, notice that there is a specific difference in the verb tense between I ain't say and I ain't said. Those aren't random variations. You might have also noticed that anymore and anything are replaced with their negative counterparts, resulting in a double negative. Actually, both that and ain't appear in other dialects of English as well, and aren't unique to AAVE. But it does have a unique kind of double negative, or sometimes triple negative construction called negative inversion.
Can't nobody sing like she can.
In standard English, this would be, nobody can sing like she can.
Ain't nobody going home till we finish.
Nobody's going home until we finish. In this construction, the auxiliary verb moves to the beginning of the sentence and becomes negative. Possessives. Possession in AAVE tends to be shown by syntax, with the apostrophe s ending deleted. For example,
Yeah, I was at my dad's house.
notice that the word dad has no apostrophe s ending, but it's clear that dad is the one who possesses the house, because dad comes right before house in the sentence. For possessive adjectives in the third person, subject pronouns are used.
They was looking for their friends.
Notice that they appears twice, once as the subject and again as the possessor. But again, we know the second one is possessive because it appears right before the noun friends. Ass constructions. AAVE features several interesting uses of the word ass. First, it intensifies an adjective.
We was at some random ass bar.
This has been adopted by speakers of other varieties of English to some extent, and even some speakers of standard English use it in casual settings when they want to be more expressive. It also reminds me of something Australians and New Zealanders say to intensify adjectives. They might say something like, "This beer is cheap as." Not ass, but as. Second, together with a possessive, it's used in place of a pronoun, but with a sense of urgency.
Your ass gonna learn.
This means you're going to learn, but the subtext is that you're chastising or warning someone. Third, it can also be used as a reflexive in place of self.
Get your ass inside the house.
That just means get yourself inside the house. Yo ass replaces yourself. This is used in other varieties of English as well, but in a much more limited capacity. Pronunciation. African American vernacular.
We'll stop there. What about that video struck your guys, stood out to you guys as being interesting?
It's nothing I haven't really heard before. I just thought it was interesting. I guess him explaining it in such an intellectual type way, like, not that it sounds like I'm being white privileged right here or something, but just the way that it's in such a serious setting, that it's been studied the way it has, things like that. But I do feel like I sound, I don't know, like I said, white privilege right there, but when I'm not trying to.
You were impressed with his presentation, with his ethos, with his credibility.
Right.
I think what stood out to me is, this sounds strange, but like, I grew up in a very diverse town. We had, not in a bad way, but we do have a lot of factories in the area, so we get a lot of different types of people. So I had like a lot of Hispanic people in my classrooms. I had a lot of African Americans, even white, like it was very diverse. A lot of Asians as well, like just all over the board. And so to me, like, it's so weird to have this studied, because I grew up hearing these my entire life, and like I even use some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I, just because I grew up hearing it all the time, that like it's gonna become part of my dialect. And even though I'm not part of that group, it's weird to see like that this is something that was like from so long ago, being in like they said, like it's a lot of slang in today's English that younger generations use. A lot of times I'll cut out syllables or words completely, but like it makes sense to people my age because we all grew up with it. It's like such a common thing to hear now.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Jonah. Sorry.
Which ones have you done? Is there one you point to?
Just cutting out the B a lot, I guess, or like they tripping. I say that a lot when like somebody's like, that just means like I guess they're like going crazy. Like another word for crazy, like they tripping. Like you just say that, or
adding ass to everything.
Yeah. It's just something that like I'm so used to cutting out the word. Like I can't even think of ones that I use because I just hear this and I'm like, yeah, I say that. Yeah, I say that. I say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that emphatic use of the word ass. I've heard that a lot. Your ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your ass better get in here and do the dishes, right?
Yeah.
Like
I just thought it was funny that it was included in such a serious way as well, you know.
Well, I mean, like that's like even in softball, that's like, we'll say like when you need to get down, like dive or like slide. A lot of times, like we're like get your ass down,
ass down,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I can see that.
like it is just like I don't know why it's just like a term we use, or get your ass over here. Like that's my mom. That's her favorite thing to tell me. I swear is whenever
Does that mean she means
I'm not.
business?
Yeah, that means Joanna, get your ass over here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Where's she at? Fast, mom.
Yeah.
That's like you know what like it's just a common thing to hear, to the point we're not supposed to, we have to do push-ups and sit-ups if we cuss anymore, because we kind of gotten in trouble with that on our softball team. But the words that she doesn't care is damn and ass. Like that's our two things. So we could be like, that was ass, or damn, that sucked, and like we won't get in trouble. But any other word we will, because it's so commonly into our vocab.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thought for you guys. Talked about how the word ain't is part of AAVE. Do you suspect that one reason why so many teachers have been so adamant against using it is because it makes you sound more African American?
Oh wow, I've never considered that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never considered that either, just because to me I thought ain't was a Southern thing, which kind of makes sense, because not in a bad way, but if you think about when like slavery and all this language they think developed, a lot of that was done in the South. Like using y'all and ain't is like, if you hear somebody, you're like, oh, you're from the South, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
because that's something that we developed, like the Southern community as a whole.
Well, we don't think like that either. Like, you know what I mean, Dr. Yeager? It's crazy. I never thought like that somebody would do, like, you know, it makes sense. I can see how it's happened, but
that might not even be like an individual teacher that scolds somebody might not even have that in the back of their mind.
Right, but
where the idea came from.
Right, yeah. But it's been like so set in stone for so long, you know. So I can see how, and like, so being careful, like, makes you, it may make you seem that way too, you know. Like you said, I never would even thought of that. Because I'm just not that way, you know. I'm not saying you are, but just, you know, it's amazing how careful you have to be now. It's kind of sad, really. I mean, I don't think you really have anything to worry about if you're, you know, you don't come from that place. Like, you're not, how do I put it? Like, you're not one of those people, I guess, you know, but you have to be worried no matter who you are, really, because everyone gets offended and it's so easy to do.
Well, so now that you guys have some understanding of how the AAVE grammar works, and that's something that you could even plan lessons around, right? Here's how you speak versus here's how you write and communicate. You might talk in a way. It's not too much different than teaching any type of literacy today, if you want to think about it that way, because people were abbreviating things and text messages and leaving things out, even with texting now. So if you want to think about it that way, it's not really too much different. You have to acknowledge sort of linguistically the difference, and then respect the difference while also showing that this is the standard that you're supposed to be held up to. And yeah, it is definitely interesting. I have a class this semester. It's a 102 class. Everybody in the class is African American, and I've been seeing all this stuff show up in there. in their work. Do you think that what do you guys think? Do you think I've been lenient on that type of stuff, or do you think I've hammered it home to go standard English? What do you, knowing me, what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, it's like traditionally in academics, standard English, it's something you need to know. It doesn't matter what race you are, you know.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as someone who's like, I've had English with you, and my grammar has been not always perfect. I have a feeling that you didn't like go too hard on them, but kind of like with me, you were like, hey, just work on your grammar next time. And then like I would think that you'd be like, give them a, like, that's not the correct way to do it. Like, because even for me, like when I write my papers, even though I use a lot of the slang and the talking that they say, I try my hardest. Like when I'm writing, I'm like, okay, I'll write something, I'll go, no, that's not correct English, let's try again. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's just something that's been taught, is like you have to sound more proper whenever you're writing a paper or such. So I feel like it's more of just like you as a teacher would probably just be like, well, just try to use the correct English. And then obviously if they continue to do it wrong, then I have a feeling that you'd take points off. But if it's just like the first time, or even maybe the second time and it's less, as long as you'll probably just let them know that that's not correct.
Well, you also have to consider there's, you know, English isn't necessarily everyone's first language as well. And there's people, you know, from all over the world that actually come here, even to this small college, you know what I mean? And they also are expected, you know, to use standard English. So, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like you try to think of it in that way. Does that sound correct? Am I sounding harsh? I don't know.
Yeah, like I think you guys are both right. Like I point out things and expect them to fix it, but at the same time, I'm not going to ignore it either. Right.
Right.
They have to meet the standard.
Yeah, that's your job. You're the professor. This is what you're teaching. This is the way, you know, it's supposed to be done, basically.
If you want to complain about the standard, like Wheeler and Thomas are doing, that's fine. But nonetheless, it's the standard that we're all held by.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. And you're trying to teach everyone, you know, you're not the same way, you know? It's not like you're trying to...
Yeah, it's not like you're picking and choosing who gets this. It's like you even did it to me, and I'm white.
Right.
But you still did it to me. Like I feel like you are good about being equal to everybody. Like I don't think you're singling out a certain person for how they speak. And I've had classes with you where we've had that same class, we had African Americans, and like whenever we're just discussing in class and they're using that type of words, you don't say anything because that's just talking. You talk how you want to talk. But when it comes to a paper, I feel like it's a completely different story.
Right.
Like papers are more, these are academic worthy papers, and academically MLA, you want to be in that correct English, or standard English, not correct, sorry, bad wording, but the standard English. And that's across the board for everybody, not just a particular group of people.
That was wonderful that you caught that. I like that you did that. I'm not saying I would have said anything, but I'm just saying, good job. Not saying correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not necessarily correct English. It's just more of like the correct English, standard English to use correctly for this assignment.
Right, exactly. Perfect.
Just like in math, when you need to use a correct formula, and you can solve it with 3 different formulas, but they want one particular one that's the correct formula to use.
Right.
Yeah, the key takeaway from all this is be knowledgeable.
Awesome. I will be right back. I'm going downstairs to study hall.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say the key takeaway from this is to be knowledgeable, but there are different linguistic differences between people. Don't ever assume even the standard English is no more superior than any other dialect of English.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I took from it. That, I mean,
and as teachers, just be empathetic and respectful to your students, and be patient with them as they learn how to almost do this like translation activity of code switching. So
I thought that was a really useful thing to know about the code switching, especially with all the how much it improved for everyone, you know, how helpful it was.
major differences in test scores
Yeah.
with it.
The success that it got.
Yeah, and if you teach in a school around here, you might not have a lot of African American students, but I imagine that if you don't have that many, it would be a lot easier for that 2 or 3 that you do have to get marginalized and left out, right?
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah,
Liam keeps seeing me mute and unmute, and he's like, I want to say helpful, mommy. Gosh, son. Sorry, go ahead.
but yeah, if you have a whole class full of African American students, and you could do like a whole group code switching exercise, and when you only have like 2 or 3, it might be easy to leave that student out. So you need to kind of be mindful on
Like doing it to the side or something, so they don't feel. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
because you don't want to point them out in front of the whole class, right?
Yeah, right.
You don't. That's exclusion.
Yeah. That's not considered an inclusive. It's all about inclusivity, right? Like, that's everything now, being inclusive. So you're right. You don't want to set them apart.
But it wouldn't hurt to work with the students one-on-one, and maybe in small group or something.
Just like you would anyone else when you're evaluating them, so you don't embarrass them. So, yeah. That makes sense. Absolutely.
So, yeah, hopefully you guys all got a knowledge of what you might expect in future classrooms, and how hopefully I gave you some strategies on how you might go about it. So,
yeah. You remember how we were talking about the grading stuff last week too, about the 50% and the 0% stuff?
The contracts.
Yes, the grading contracts and such. I had some observations this week, and there's like some kids that, in particular, that after a few days of being with them, you can see, like, you know, some of them are earning those zeros. You know what I mean? Like, they have earned that 0. So it was just funny. I just kept thinking of this class.
You know, they don't give them a 50, right?
Right. Yeah, there's no 50% there. So, like, when you're going out of your way to not do things and you're consistent about it. Yeah. And you've been given chance after chance. But yeah, anyways.
One thing I want to mention in these final few moments is I kind of want to get everybody start, because we're close to the end of March, and next month's going to be the busy month. We're close to the end of these articles, and I just kind of want to remind everybody, whatever one of these subjects you find interesting, run with it. And that can almost become a start for your research here in a couple of weeks. So, like, if you really, for instance, found it interesting reading these articles, maybe you have more questions, like, how do I teach? What are some specific types of lessons I can do for AAVE, right? Or is code switching racist or something, right? Like, there's all kinds of like jumping off places that you could take to do a research paper. And something like code switching, for instance. Like one of the things that I'm going to ask you guys to do at the end is give a presentation where you teach a lesson. And I guess I'll have to, for the all online people, I will have to grade a YouTube video. But one of the things that you might do for your lesson, you might do something like this, right? Like do a code switching lesson or something like that, just to show that these pedagogies that we're talking about, that you're engaging and acting on them in some way. So that's something to start thinking about over the next coming weeks. What might you do for a research project, and what type of lesson might you be interested in teaching over? Take the presentation. I'm going to ask for about a 10-minute presentation from each student. So you might start thinking, who's your audience for your presentation? Like what grade group are you trying to reach, for instance? Maybe it's a different type of audience. What are you trying to communicate and convey? How effectively do you go about giving examples and stuff like that? So I'll be given a prompt for the presentation soon. And again, if one of these topics strikes your interest in the coming weeks, it's time to start thinking. It's time to at least get those gears going in your heads to start thinking about it. Okay.
I like how you always give us a heads up about that to make us be mindful.
Yeah.
So, but you also give us a chance to do it, though. I do give you credit for that. I think it's great. So,
and we got, as far as subjects left to go, we're doing Appalachian English next Tuesday. We're doing ESL next Thursday. And then our final day, week of March 31st to April 6th, the final day of articles, we'll talk about standardized testing. So of all these different issues we've talked about, and it even might be something, but all these issues we've talked about, you can design a lesson around it. You can build a research project off of it. So that's part of, this is the part of the class where you're showing engagement and you're reading all these great scholars who have done all this good work. So now it's time for you guys to be scholars and do your own research and apply it to your own future practice. So both in teaching and in research. So whatever you find interesting. We only got 3 more topics left before we get into the nitty gritty of writing. But whatever topic you find interesting, start thinking about it. Maybe the key with research is you don't want to just point to an issue. You don't want to just be like, I'm going to write about AAVE, right? What about AAVE? Like, you always, in order to do research, you always need to frame it as a subjective question.
like you were saying, code switching in AAVE, is it racist? Like we were just talking about, basically.
Yeah, like, is code switching racist, right? That's a jumping off point. Or is code switching an effective method for teaching those populations? Would code switching work with, maybe you could apply the idea to a different marginalized group? You just kind of have, you can't just say, I'm writing about the AAVE, period. You have to kind of think about it and form a subjective question inside your head. And the subjective question is your jumping off point, right? So, yeah, here in the month of April, we're going to be doing a lot of writing. You guys will start with an annotated bibliography and a proposal, and then you'll write the final paper during finals week. And then you'll also be doing your presentations. You'll be doing a lot here, pretty close. to the end of the class. And that's where a majority of the grade actually is. I think 30% is the essay, maybe 10 or 15 is the bibliography, 10 or 15 is the presentation. So a big majority of the grade will be in these final few weeks.
How many annotations are you wanting? Is it similar to the last one we had, like from one of our other classes with you? Is it like 5 or 6 or?
I don't know right off. I'd have to look at my prompt again, but probably around that ballpark, 6, 7.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, once we're done talking about our articles, we got 3 more article days. I'll start showing you guys how to do research on grammar. That'll be when we start going along those lines. I'm guessing the 2 of you can just do a traditional presentation on Zoom or on Google Meets here.
Mm-hmm.
The rest, I'm going to have to come up with an alternative prompt and how I'm going to assess them and stuff, considering they won't get any questions. I might have to ask one of my speech teacher buddies here how do they go about doing that.
Yeah. That'd be hard. I've never had an online speech class. I guess I was lucky with that.
Yeah,
I have a friend with an online speech class, and what her professor does. Sorry if you can hear people in the background. What her professor does is she sends out multiple days and times throughout the week, and then they just come in and present it when you choose your time, and then you just come in and do it, and the time you chose.
Gotcha. So it's really like, everything else is online, just not that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be hard for me to do because everybody in this class works and stuff. So I imagine I'll have to do it with them making a video. I'll think about how I'm going to do. That doesn't apply to the 2 of you. It applies to everybody else, though.
I'll be sure to use my phone that day so that I can have the camera on.
Right.
Since
We're special, Amelia.
Yes. But you know what? We earned it.
You actually have it easier because you can just do it and have it done. You don't have
to
process the video and all that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm nervous because I get nervous for public speaking, and so I'm scared my stutter's going to come out real bad, or my speech impediment. One of the two is going to happen.
It's just you and me. You're good.
Well, I'm not going to grade you as much on that type of stuff as much as the content. So,
right.
Yeah, don't worry too much about all that.
Yeah, you're good. And even if you did stutter, I'm not judging.
I stutter every day, probably. So
yeah, we all have our moments.
Think about it like last semester, Joanna, when you were the speaker for that side of the room on our debate days.
I don't know who else was going to talk. They all just looked at me every time, and I was like, "Yep, I'll go. Let me just start talking."
Yeah.
This sounds so bad, but when I would get nervous, I would somehow try to relate it to softball. I felt like that was my easiest out. I can relate anything. If I could relate something to softball, I can talk about it all day.
There you go. I love that.
Well, guys, it's a beautiful day. I'll let you guys go a little early. So I'll see you guys next Tuesday for the Appalachian English Day.
Yeah, I hope you feel better.
Tuesday.
Thank you.
Hope you feel better as well.
Bye,
wait,
guys.
I will not see you Tuesday. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see you on Thursday, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
I'll see you on Thursday.
See you next week, Joel. See you next Tuesday, Amelia.
See ya.